Today for the Harry Potter series, we're revisiting Chamber of Secrets, though this time on the PlayStation 1. As I mentioned way back in my Chamber of Secrets review, the PlayStation 1 version was developed by the same team who worked on Sorcerer's Stone. Now, I liked Sorcerer's Stone on the PlayStation. Even with some of its faults, it was a really decent start for the series. That being said, I wasn't really sure what to expect from Chamber of Secrets on the PlayStation. Considering that the PS1 was on its way out at the time, and clearly EA was putting the focus on the Xbox, PlayStation 2, and GameCube versions, I always assumed that the PS1 version would just be a copy and paste version of Sorcerer's Stone. It would end up reusing the same graphics, gameplay, and structure. However, only about 10 minutes into Chamber of Secrets, and I found myself very surprised. Chamber of Secrets is not just a copy and paste version of Sorcerer's Stone. The developers made enhancements here, and there's actually more depth than what was seen in Sorcerer's Stone. In regards to the narrative, I have to say that this version is more complete than what was seen on the console versions. Many of the characters that were strangely missing in action there are now featured. Dobby is here, so is Mr. Weasley, Colin Creevey, and even Lockhart gets more screen time than he did in the console versions. There are actually several playable sections here in the PS1 version that were only cutscenes in the console versions. You get to control Harry during the flute powder scene and during the trip to the Chamber of Secrets. You'll fly the Fort Angula to Hogwarts, and there's even a scene depicting the bludger that chases Harry during the Quidditch match. Some of these sections only last for a bit, but at least they're playable in some form. Now, as I mentioned, Chamber of Secrets makes some improvements over the gameplay of Sorcerer's Stone. You still go to class to learn spells, and you still have to do that whole follow the pointer thingy. However, this time you're graded based on your performance during classes, which is affected by your timing of hitting the correct button. The timing can be a little bit hard to get right, so good luck trying to get an A in each class, though thankfully there's only 2 classes. Then, after learning each spell, you get to try it out in a challenge area. These areas are not as expansive as what was seen in the console versions, but they are significantly better than what was seen in Sorcerer's Stone. Also, there's no more time-wasting mini-games in order to cast spells. Back in my original Sorcerer's Stone review, I mentioned that objects should just sparkle a certain color, and then you can use the spell. That's pretty much the system that's used here. Thanks to the more simplistic system, you get to use your spells more often and throughout the whole game, rather than in certain areas. The downside here is that there's only one new spell to learn. The rest repeat from the first game. The new spell is Petrificus Totalis, which is only used in one area and then never again. Flipendo, Incendio, Wingardium Leviosa, and Verdimillious all return, with Avaforce having been cut, although all the returning spells function just like they did in the first game. A new feature to the game are the Wizard Duels. These were featured in the console versions but were slightly streamlined. There you basically engaged your opponent in a tennis match, flicking Flipendo between each other. Here the system is actually pretty fun. You get to spam Flipendo to try and hit your opponent, and you can charge it up for more damage. There's also special power-ups that you can use to make the spell charge faster or to launch multiple spells at once. You can collect these power-ups by letting your opponent hit objects on your side of the arena. The flip side of this is that you can end up doing the same thing for your opponent, so it kinda makes you want to watch where you're throwing spells. The power-ups are not necessary to win by any means, but it's a nice addition. These duels are fun since the game doesn't throw 100 of them at you like what happened in the Half-Blood Prince game. There are other side quests like Quidditch and collecting wizard cards. The cards serve more of a purpose here, as collecting them will unlock special Founder duels for Harry to take part in. Finding the cards is actually more intensive than the last game. In Sorcerer's Stone, you would usually just enter a secret passageway, collect the card, and no problem. In Chamber of Secrets, you can still use the secret passages, but the rooms are way more expansive, and sometimes you'll need certain spells to make progress here in order to get to the card. Quidditch matches work just like they did in the first game, which is by no means a bad thing. However, instead of the bar at the bottom of the screen used to catch the snitch, you get this weird sort of POV shot of Harry trying to grab the snitch, and it's a little bit awkward to work around. You also get to collect beans again, though this time they're not divided by color, you'll just collect them all together. You mostly use them to buy wizard cards from Fred and George, though once you buy out all 5 cards from them, the only thing left to use them for is to buy the Flipendo upgrade from the first game. You can also replay missions from the common room, and this is a nice way of either collecting the cards you missed or just replaying your favorite missions without having to start the whole game over. The presentation is pretty much what was seen in Sorcerer's Stone. The game retains the storybook narration, though the art style used previously here has been replaced. The game now uses character models from the console versions in still images. Sometimes this looks okay, though other times the images can look a bit crude. On a side note, these sections are now narrated by Jim Dale, who also narrated the US version of the Potter audiobooks. Character models tend to look the same from the first game, though the areas around Hogwarts are a bit bigger and look more in line with areas from the film. And also many of the areas that return from the first game have been redesigned rather than just simply being reused. The music is a nice mix of Jeremy Soul's work from the first and second game, and it sounds amazing. Overall, I have to say that I was very impressed with Chamber of Secrets. I was a bit hesitant to try it out at first since I assumed it would be more of what I saw in Sorcerer's Stone, though thankfully the developers made changes and tried to improve on the foundation of the first game. I still prefer the Xbox version of Chamber of Secrets, and that's mostly due to the challenge areas and the free roam flying, but the PlayStation 1 version is still interesting and enjoyable, and if you really enjoyed Sorcerer's Stone, then you definitely should give this a try, as it's definitely the better of the 2 PlayStation Potter games. Well, the Harry Potter series continues next time as we get to look at Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup. Thanks for watching.